so gross out. Why isn't it winter yet? I need winter. I don't need it to be 80 degrees and 100% humidity. I don't need that in December. I need cold weather. I want a lot of fire. God
Whoa,
forbid
fire?
I have a fire. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to have a fire, like a pit, drink some beer around it? No. It's too sticky. You can't even light a fire. It's too wet. I hate this mid-December just blues. I got the mid-December blues. Joe, I'm glad you're on here. Maybe you can cheer me up.
I'll try, Harry.
Well, I appreciate you being on here, Joe from Pinthouse. Jen, why don't you introduce them and we can get this podcast going?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to welcome to BeerNet Radio, Joe Mohrfeld, co-founder and VP of Brewery Operations and Distribution for Pinthouse Pizza. Now, Pinthouse has been an Austin staple since 2012. I believe you guys have grown to about a regional-sized brewer since then, and you guys have received countless awards, but I know you as one of my go-to local pints in Austin, as many Austinites do. So welcome, Joe. And I guess you've never met Harry before. That was you jumped in at the deep end there.
Well, I did meet Harry out at the conference in 2020.
Oh, that's right.
Before the world
right.
shut down, and then
Right.
I had a great time out in Florida with y'all. But it's been a few years, yes.
Yes,
Crazy.
well, it's good to see you again, Joe.
Yeah.
And are you in Austin right now?
I am. Yeah, I'm experiencing the same wonderful weather you were just talking about.
Okay, so I'm glad that you're at least here so that you know what I'm talking about and maybe can have some compassion about it. So
he's super happy you're suffering along with him. That's what's always important to Harry.
Yeah.
At Texas, you don't need a fire because it's like a warm hug every time you walk outside.
A warm, wet hug, like a giant dog is licking you.
Ugh. Well, so Joe, nice to see you. It's been a while. You were in California recently and then you just got back, or?
Yeah, yep. I was just out making some beer with Matt Brynildson over at Firestone, and then my good friend Evan Price at Green Cheek. We were doing a little collaboration for the Brewmasters Reserve Series at Firestone. So, like all good hop forward brewers, we spent about 6 hours peeling and flambéing bananas. So putting that brewing training to the test.
Nice, very cool. When will that hit market?
I believe it's February. It's part of their like Cellar Reserve or Brewmasters Club.
Cool.
I don't know how available it'll be outside of that, but I think February is the release of it. Big Imperial Stout. I think it's Parabola for their base, and then some cool adjuncts. Lots of bananas. 1,800 pounds of bananas we processed over the course of 2 days.
Wow. You got your potassium in for the year.
I'll have to look for that one. Well, so Joe, I wanted to have you on because first of all, it's been a while since we've connected. But also, at least from just living in Austin, it still seems like you guys are on really solid footing in a year where craft has had a particularly tough time, right? And so I'm just curious to check in with you guys, read the tea leaves. Like, what kind of year are you guys shaping up to have?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, some headwinds out there. We're bucking those trends a little bit, which is really good. We're going to finish this year a little over 23,000 barrels.
Oh, wow.
We still got a couple weeks left, so we'll see where it falls exactly. But we're kind of estimating we'll probably be up about 2.5% total production volume this year. A lot of that for us is actually capped by kind of the Texas laws preventing brew pubs from producing over 10,000 barrels per location. So we're really starting to hit our ceiling for production at 2 of our locations. So I think there's a little more runway out there for us, what we feel. But we are definitely seeing, especially in Austin, it's a tightening market. We're working harder than we ever have been for that incremental growth. But yeah, we're going to be up again in total barrelage. One of the things I thought was kind of interesting this year, we'll be up in market. We'll be up about 3% CEs with our brown distributing partner here in Austin, and we'll be up about 23% in San Antonio with Silver Eagle. So what I attribute that to is we're really seeing a little bit of the over the bar slowdown in the pubs. We're not necessarily seeing package really picking up all that. Our package is up a little bit, fairly flat. Again, it's kind of capped. We kind of just produce what we can. But we're spreading that off or the on premise out a little bit more. So yeah, we're still growing, which is great. We're anticipating we have a little bit more capacity that we're going to try to push next year, so we can maybe eke another percent or two out of total production.
Interesting. And you have 4 locations, right?
Correct. We have 4. So we brew roughly. So our original location at its peak, we did about 1,500 barrels out of it. This past year, we turned it into an R&D facility. So I brought one of my brewers down, who's been with me actually a little over a decade now. He runs that solo. We do about 550 barrels there. That's where we're doing all of our kind of innovation and when we're working on tweaking any recipes. So we actually pulled some barrelage off of that this year. But then our other locations are producing right around 10,000 barrels at 2 of them and about 3,000 at the other.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And so you really have 3 production breweries and then kind of a pilot brewery. And explain to our readers outside of Texas why that's important, the 10,000 barrel limit per brewery.
Well, I'm not sure why it's important.
It's like, it's not important. It sucks. No.
Well, I mean, why it's, yeah.
No, I've actually changed my tone on this a little bit, but yeah, so we are a brewpub license. In Texas, you can't hold a brewpub and a brewery manufacturer license. So when we built our first facility, we were zoned retail. You also can't, in Austin, you can't have a brewery in a zoned retail location. So we've decided to stay on the brewpub path for all of our locations instead of trying to rezone or do anything. It comes with challenges, right? You're spending a lot of money every time you need to grow that extra step. You're investing in a lot more capital. But what it's done is it's kind of kept us from getting over our skis at the same time. We've been able to build really nimble facilities, so I think we can adapt a little bit better. As market has been changing. We're one of the things that we really focus on, especially with having smaller brew houses, is we can really ensure freshness. We're bringing out a lot of product every week. So like Get Brown Distributing, we typically see about a 2-day inventory, excess inventory at their warehouse every week.
Wow, that's really low.
Extremely fresh in market. Which I think has been a big attribute to our success over the time. We're not putting out old beer. We have a little bit more Silver Eagle, just because of the shipping logistics, but we're still probably only in that 7-day for our flagship Electric Jellyfish. Yeah. Long and short of it, we have a 10,000 barrel cap as a brew pub. That may or may not change someday. There's a moratorium on any kind of barrelage talks with the Texas legislature and the distribution partners and the Craft Brewers Guild. But again, as we've started to experience some of these headwinds, I don't know, I kind of look at it as it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise for us and how we've been chosen to grow. We've had to be a little more strategic with our build outs and continue to focus on that over the bar sales, in our pubs. And I think that's given us a lot of strength.
Yeah. When does that moratorium? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to, actually, that's what I was going to ask. When does that it's kind of a self-imposed kind of agreement amongst the industry participants, right? To not go push a bill in the legislature until, when does that end?
I believe we still have, I think we have 3 more sessions because it's every other year for a session. So I believe it's 6 years and 3 more sessions.
Okay. And you guys, do y'all make a D9 beverage?
We do not, no. So we are actually probably pretty unique in the beer world. We do not do any seltzers. We don't do any FMBs. I mean, we just make beer.
You guys are old school. I like that.
We are, yeah.
Beer flavored beer. Who'd have thought that? Yeah. Well, it's probably good you're not in D9 because I have a feeling it's going to be illegal here in about what?
5 minutes.
Yeah, in about 4 weeks when the legislature comes back in.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, you kind of spoke to this a little bit, but as far as the tap room, the on-premise dynamics, first of all, curious if you can share your mix, what is on-premise versus not? And also, what are you seeing in the tap rooms? Like, it sounds like those have been harder. I don't know if it's inflation or what have you, but what that's shaping up to look like.
For sure. So we typically see this year it's shifted a little bit, like I said, but we're probably right in that 26 to 28% of our total volume is being sold over our bars. Mm-hmm. it's kind of one of those until we wrap up like end of the year direct to consumer can sales and stuff. I won't have the exact, but we're probably right in that still in that 26 to 28% over the bar. So about 6,000 barrels go over our bars, and then the rest out to market, with our draft to package mix being about 65% draft still. We're definitely a draft heavy brand. Yeah, might be closer to like 60%, but yeah, we're definitely focused on draft.
How is how's Dirty Six doing? My son graduated from UT last year, so I haven't been going down there much anymore. Is Sixth Street dead or what's going on?
It's coming back a little bit. It got rocked during the
Yeah.
pandemic, and it was an ugly couple of years coming out for a lot of those businesses down there. We don't sell a lot of beer down on Dirty Six. Believe it or not, like an ultra premium hazy IPA at 210 PPR 50 liter is not what a lot of those bars are looking at
Yeah.
to expand their depth. But we are in a couple, believe it or
Yeah.
not.
I got arrested on Sixth Street about 4 or 5 years ago, and I skipped town. I think I'm pretty sure I have a warrant out for my arrest in Travis County. So if I do get arrested there, can I call you?
Sure, yeah, I can definitely offer financial and legal advice as well. Yeah.
Okay. Tight.
Don't
I'll
worry.
get your number after this.
He's got safe harbor at Trulux. It's like what's the movie John Wick where the whatever that hotel is where nobody can touch you. That's
Yeah.
Trulux.
No,
he hides out there.
No, I hide out at Oil Can Harry's because nobody will find me there.
You're not hiding there, Harry.
No, I'm fully out there.
Anyway, no, but yeah, I was also curious. I mean, obviously, you guys serve a lot of pizza too. What are you seeing in terms of how healthy your sort of own premise restaurant traffic, all that is?
Yeah. So again, I think we're one of the restaurant industry it's tough. The inflationary, the cost of goods pressures where we see it a lot of right now is cheese. Cheese is just it's crazy. I never thought I would care about cheese futures, but I watch those now. But yeah, that's been kind of a wild ride for us.
Yeah.
We're going to comp positive as a company for the cross company, both in pub and distro, which we're really happy with. Obviously, right now, not only gross but net, which again we're really happy with. But yeah, the restaurant, the pressures are definitely there. We're seeing a little bit less wage pressure. I think we kind of absorbed that all really early on coming out of the pandemic. So we're seeing a little bit less there, but we're seeing a lot on the raw materials on the restaurant side. The brewing side, we've actually been able to manage that really effectively. So we don't plan on taking any price increases in the next, hopefully in the next year or two. We see, we're actually seeing some softening on the cost of goods for us. I think we kind of hit an inflection point with our growth where we started scaling and getting those, benefits of larger purchasing power right at the right time that inflation was happening. So we kind of never saw that. We kind of always were dealing with that high cost, but we're actually starting to see it come down now for us. But the restaurant games, it's always a challenge. There's always razor thin margins. We got a good operating team over there. So we're working hard. I think it still does. There's a lot of strength in the restaurant, and I'm still a big proponent in having some kind of diversification in that, having some food. So yeah, it's still a huge part of who we are. And
I mean, Pinthouse is best pizza in town.
Thanks, Harry. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it is. And you get, fresh beer. What's not to like about that? So
I thought he was going to say, and you get free refills. And I was like, actually, I don't think so, but we're at the Burnett location a lot. And anyway, well, so I'm curious what you think about the larger industry, because obviously, craft has had a tough year. I think it was the first time that closings outpaced openings in like 20 years. But, most of the new brewers that are opening up are like either brew pubs or tap rooms, so very own premise oriented. Do you think that's a good thing for the industry? I mean, how does that bode? Like you said, restaurant is razor thin margins. It's a tough business.
I think, I may have even said it in meeting with you at a Beer Business Daily years ago, but I kind of have had this prediction that the brewing industry is going to go more the way of the restaurant industry when you go out on a long enough timeline. Clearly there's still going to be a lot of the big players, the regionals and the nationals in that space, but that is it's such a tough nut to crack. And you talk about razor thin margins. I mean, the restaurant industry almost looks attractive compared to trying to distribute your beer, in multiple states and be profitable at scale. So I mean, I think it's a good thing as long as you do have to really understand. I think a lot of people, if you're looking at starting, you really got to understand your real estate costs because you're operating in such a different environment and you're paying so much more for every square foot. And every square foot can literally mean X amount of dollars, from a customer coming in. And so I think we have to rethink about that as brewers. Like it's not just a big warehouse that you can shove equipment in. You need to be really strategic with your goal on how many barrels you think you can do over the bar, and make sure that business model is very tight. And I think it can be really successful. I think we're going to find a lot of people operating in that space successfully. I think, you can do 3,000 barrels. I mean, honestly, our most profitable location, we brew 3,000 barrels. We probably sell close to 2,000 over the bar, 1,800 over the bar, a little bit out to market. It's a little bit of that gravy on top. What it allows us to do then is brew very consistently. We just kind of set our brew schedule to brew twice a day, 5 days a week, and kind of run it like a manufacturing facility. So we get a lot of efficiencies. And then, we have the food side generating a lot of that revenue. So I mean, I think it's different. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's different. I think, I mean, 10 years ago, you just said this, there's not going to be another Sierra Nevada out there, like you're not starting one up and becoming that. It's just, it's hard to get that scale. And I know a lot of regionals are feeling that. So I guess this goes back to the brewpub, law for us. I think it's prevented us. We were looking 5 years ago. Could we go out and turn an Electric Jellyfish into a 40,000 barrel brand? I think we could have Texas, but we might be in a lot of trouble right now if we would have done that.
Yeah, I mean, and you're running it close to capacity, which is a really good spot to be in, right? I think there's not many craft brewers out there that are running at near full capacity. Most of them have a lot of excess capacity, and an idle iron kills the golden goose. Write that down. Write that down, Ethel. Idle iron slays the golden goose. I think that's a good quote.
Yeah, I mean, you think of manufacturing, right? I grew up around enough manufacturing to know that if a piece of equipment is not running, you're not making any money off of it. And so when we designed Pinthouse, moving from Odell to here, we were very much a production model. We ran 6 days a week, 24 hours a day, and nothing sat empty. And I mean, that's when you make money off of your equipment. And so even when we've been a small brew pub growing, we've always tried to treat it that way. What a tank can produce per year. And so, not expanding before you fully maximize that. And trying to run like as tight as you can. I think there's a lot of nice to haves in brewing. You can go out and get the really big brew house and, big tanks. But again, it comes back to freshness and figuring out your brew links for how much you're distributing. And I think there's just a lot to keeping that capacity in check. And we've worked really hard to manage that to try to not, again, get over our skis with that.
I'm curious, this is kind of switching gears just a little bit. It seems like you guys have a pretty darn good relationship with Brown. I know you're a very profitable brand for them. What do you think the state of the union is like right now for craft wholesaler relations? Because, before there was a time where they were very sort of contentious, and I feel like that has died down. And I don't know if that's because other things have just taken over the spotlight or if things were better or what have you. Any sort of generalized thoughts?
I mean, we've had a great relationship with Brown over the years. We've been with them since 2015. We've been with Silver Eagle since 2019 now. We took a little bit different approach, I think, than a lot of smaller craft. We really embraced the distributor network early instead of, we never did self-distribution. I mean, I think there's a lot of power in the distribution network. So I think one of our big goals early on, I mean, I worked for a distributor. My first job out of college, I worked for J.J. Taylor up in the Twin Cities. Okay. So, I had some awareness of that, but, I think for me, it was like embracing that, building that relationship early on. I mean, even with, us and Brown early on, we had some points of contention. We had a very distinct vision on what we wanted to do, and it didn't really align with what they had ever done historically. Yeah. We believed in it, so it's worked, and we've given in places, they've given in places, and I think we've got there together. I think for craft to continue to have those relationships with distributors, I think we need to be really smart about managing our SKUs, managing our package, managing our freshness. We can't put a distributor in a position where we're asking them to manage 20 brands. I mean, I think that's where craft kind of lost some of that momentum is we had this Trojan horse and then we got too wide with the whole proliferation of SKUs. And at some point you can't push through that wall anymore, right? Like it's like you're gonna get caught. And I saw that with a lot of craft brands. I mean, we basically have four main SKUs that make up 95% of our distribution volume. And that's in one package format for cans and two package formats for kegs. So we've really tried to go kind of lean with that and focus on those core, drive that home, add a seasonal here and there. I mean, we send a little bit here and there, but we really try to manage that with our reps versus saying, hey, we got this new SKU, we need you to go out and place it in the 32 HEBs and do that. So yeah, I think for craft, it's making sure you show that value to the distributor and that you're not just putting a bunch of beer in their warehouse and expecting them to figure out homes for all this.
That's a great point. I mean, and you almost, I think that the miscommunication on that comes from craft brewers who've never worked at a distributor. Like you say, you worked at J.J. Taylor. You know that SKUs add complexity. Wholesalers hate SKUs, right? And the pushback starts at the retailer. So, a lot of people blame the wholesaler for not wanting to take on the SKUs, but really they just know there's no place to put them all. It's hard to get a billboard in HEB with, like you said, 8 6-packs in a row on a cold box shelf. So yeah, and imagine that getting along with your customer. I think in some way craft brewers, when it was growing really hard, they were feeling their oats and maybe overextended, and then now the wholesalers are feeling their oats and cutting SKUs since COVID. Free of charge.
I absolutely agree with you, Harry. I mean, I think the wholesalers, they've always had a lot of the power, and that's why I think it's a relationship. You have to provide them with a product that's going to make that margin for them, make it profitable, and give them a reason to be excited about selling it at the end of the day. Because, before some of these, especially the AB houses broke like the AB exclusivity, it was very streamlined. It was a pretty simple model,
Yeah, 80 SKUs.
Yeah,
selling 10 million cases out of 80 SKUs. It's a money printing machine.
This is a lifetime ago, but I was working with JJ. We were the Miller House, and we were fighting the AB house up in the Twin Cities. We had, I don't even know how many brands we had. Like you couldn't even keep track of that, let alone SKUs. And AB people would go in there. And they had I think they had Goose Island at the time. That was like their first craft. And it was so simple. Like they could they go through their whole portfolio in 6 minutes to a beer buyer,
Wow.
Oh, those were the days, man. I worked at a Miller distributor too. And I remember when we broke 100 SKUs and like everybody's hair was on fire. Oh my God, 100 SKUs, because the AB guy across the street had 80 and it's selling twice as much. So good times, right?
Good times. Well, I'm curious, we're talking about SKUs. Would you guys ever come out with anything besides a 16-ounce 4-pack can for distribution, do you think?
You never say never, right?
Yeah.
We don't have any plans to. We basically set up our packaging line to run that format. We've kind of found that little niche for us in that like super premium 4-pack. We kind of know we think we know what our consumer is looking for in that beer. We don't want to be the beer. I'd love to be the beer, but I don't know if people have enough money in their wallet for us to be the beer that they're stocking cases of it in their refrigerator every week. But we don't want that necessarily. We're probably looking at more of that crowd that's going to pick up a couple 4-packs, have it with dinner, have it with a couple friends. But they're going to have that beer in their fridge, the Mick Ultras, or either maybe a New Belgium Craft or something like that. But I feel like this is another thing. You get that proliferation of a package size, and you create some consumer confusion on what they're looking for. But again, never say never. Like who knows what we'll be in a year or 2 years. This industry obviously moves very fast, and We want to continue to be nimble. So as of now, no, we don't have any plans. Could that change someday? Absolutely. We have a Mexican lager. I don't know if you've heard of this category. This Mexican lager category came out of nowhere, right?
It sounds intriguing. Tell me
Yeah.
more.
We've been doing this beer for 11 years, and we started putting it in cans 4 years ago, and we don't really sell any cans outside of our locations, but it's our number one by volume beer over the bar in all 4 of our locations most of the year. And then our can sales with it, if you just go over the bar direct consumer can sales, it's like in our top 3. And it's an expensive Mexican lager. It's delicious. It's great. But like that would be something we would have to figure out a different format if we wanted to be competitive with it, at an HEB level at some point. So
Like a 12
that would
pack or
be,
something.
yeah, or at least a 6-pack, I guess.
Yeah.
But we'd have to figure that out, and I think we would want to be very cautious to make sure we know what that brand represents, and it doesn't pull our other brands into the different category or something. So that would probably be the first brand that would maybe ever migrate if we continue to see that growth there.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, going back when you talked about, sorry, Jen.
It's okay.
I'll shut up after this. But earlier you said, Joe, that when you first started with distribution, that you had a specific vision. What was that vision?
Yeah. So when we started with distro, my original plan was basically to drive people to our locations. So we went to Brown. We were draft only, 50 liters only. And we wanted to target very specific accounts that we could get in front of a lot of eyes that we thought would be the type of consumer to come into Pinthouse. So early on, it was Alamo Draft Houses here in Austin. It was that kind of demographic. And then it was the bars that we know those people are never going to cross over to a Pinthouse customer. They either don't have kids, they're in a different age. They're like Harry hanging out on Dirty Sixth and never, coming over to a restaurant. So we kind of picked about 15 or 20 accounts originally strategically. And we went to, we talked with Brown, and we said, this is where we want to be. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to focus on. And it was really a marketing move for us. Our margins were terrible when we're trying to produce this out of a small brew pub. So it was almost more of a marketing expense early on to drive, to get our name out there and drive customers back to the pub. And then we just kind of caught on like wildfire. It was, it kind of came to this cult beer. We hit that hazy movement right when it was on the uptick, kind of unintentionally. We were making beers like that since 2012. It just, the stars align, and the name is really catchy. I think it's one that's not overly masculine. It's not overly feminine. I think it's approached by all kinds of people. I think it's very recognizable in the glass. So like you'd be at an Alamo Draft House and you could look around the theater and see everybody drinking one, and like why, what is that? It just had that appearance. So it started doing its own marketing. So then after that, we lost a little bit of that strategicness, but they pushed a lot for us to get into package a lot earlier than we ever did. We just didn't have the resources to buy a canning line or a place to put it. So we stuck with draft only for a long time. But yeah, a lot of it was strategically kind of a marketing move to get out into places that would hopefully.
Interesting. And it's such a distinctive name. Like it's very memorable. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It was actually a point of contention with my business partners and myself. I'd come up with the name, and we were kind of split almost 3-3 when we released it. They thought they're like, this is silly and absurd, and then some of us were like, this is really fun. And I'm a big Wes Anderson fan. It comes from the Life Aquatic, and
oh, nice.
It kind of fit our nautical theme. But it's fun now because I hear a lot of people in market. They're telling me the origin story of it, and it's great because I'm always curious like where they come up with this, and some of them are just so outlandish.
What were some of the alternative names?
Well, we never really had an alternative name so the original flagship IPA, when you're one brew pub, and I don't know if you can call it flagship, but it was the beer we brewed the most, was called Man of War.
Yeah.
And so the line in Life Aquatic references Man of War and Electric Jellyfish. So when we were up in the second location, we thought it was a fun play on that, and it's kind of a natural progression. So fortunately, we never got into any alternate names. We obviously never expected it to become this really big brand overnight either. But yeah, it all worked. And I think and then our artist has done a great job with the packaging. And so I think it's kind of set this whole tone for, who we are as a company.
Well, what I wanted to ask earlier, I have the very, I'm not going to sound great when I say this, but we buy lots of your beers at HEB, and I don't pay much attention to the price. So I don't know. I'm very blessed that way. Harry treats us very well. Also, my husband does well. So, but I know it's high-ish. So I'm curious, how is that price point doing in market right now? And you guys looking at going up a little in distro or what have you? Obviously retailer set price, but you know what I mean, generally, directionally.
Yeah. Yeah. So the price seems to be holding steady. We've kind of carved out that tier. We've had a couple other breweries that have kind of located themselves right around our tier, which is great, strong for us. I think we've had that price point in market for 4 years now, so that's really helped too.
Is it like $17.99 for a pack?
Yeah, so
$18.99?
typically
Okay.
HEB is like 18.
Okay.
And yeah, it seems to be holding strong. I mean, we're up in HEB again. HEB also loves us because it's a really good margin. And with the 4-pack, you got 6 units in the case, so their margin is great on it. But yeah, I think it goes back. We've kind of carved out this whole. We know we're not going to be maybe the biggest volume, or we know there's not this huge runway to this format right now, but we've carved out that niche and we're getting that incremental growth. And I think we know that customer that is picking that up and the intentionality behind that customer. It's not a customer that I think we're not playing that game of they're buying us one time and then jumping over to the next 6-pack that's $1 cheaper on a weekend sale or something like that. So it's held steady for us, which is great. On our end, we have no intention to take any price increase this year, next year, 25, 26. I've been, part of what I spend a lot of my time is managing that raw material. That's our biggest input cost, obviously, in this. And we've done a really good job with that. So we don't have any need to take price on both draft or package on any of our product, which I'm really happy about, because I think it's a tough time to do it. I think people are a little stressed in the wallet right now. So avoiding that, I think, is going to be a strength in the long term.
Not Jen. Jen doesn't even look. She doesn't even
Jen
look at the
doesn't look
price.
at prices.
No,
Yeah.
she just grabs it off the shelf. It could be
No,
$2.99.
No,
it could be
I just
40.
point. I point, and people
just
come
point.
and they get it for me.
Right. Has it
They take it
delivered
up to the
probably.
register.
The pricing question is always interesting to me too, because you see this rise in NAs.
Yeah.
And NAs are very expensive. And so I think it goes back to that consumer intentionality with what people are going out to purchase. And I think if you can give them that, the price is less of that talking point. And so what we're trying to stay out of is kind of that more commodification, that tier that, it becomes interchangeable. And that's where I guess I look to that segment to, if that's staying strong at these really high price points, that means that consumers are out there buying with intention. So the price isn't driving that pure decision. Now, clearly there is a lot, right? Like there's a lot of people that, it's going to be interesting to see if the tariffs happen and what that does with Mexican beer and how that changes things. But yeah, I think all in all, we've stayed really strong there. I think the biggest thing that we're up against in Austin on the on-premise side with pricing is the newer retailers that are trying to cover some really expensive leases or property.
Oh, yeah.
And the margins that they're having to take, it's tough, because at our PTR, they're seeing our beer being priced $4 or $5, sometimes more than we're selling in the pub. And I guess if everything is high at those places, so it is what it is. But it's I don't know. I've had this conversation with some wholesalers, and I do think there needs to be a little bit of we need to tap the retailers on the back and be like, come on, we can't expect to get all of our margin just off of beer or just off of a few products. We need to look at this whole thing if we want to be sustainably growing.
Put it on the cocktails. make the beer the affordable option.
They make so much money on cocktails.
Yeah.
Well, Austin's so crazy. I mean, I don't know if it's still like this, but I mean, is just a couple of years ago, all restaurants were packed. It didn't matter where it was, how high priced. I mean, it was hard to get a seat anywhere. It's just crazy. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it is Austin's such a great market, I would think, to be in because it grew so fast. I know it's slowed down, but
Yeah.
There's still not a lot of restaurants in Austin. I think that's kind of the crazy thing, and the per dollar spend for people in Austin is still one of the highest in the country when it comes to eating and drinking out. So, I mean, I think there's still a lot of room in
is
this.
that because of zoning, or is it hard to? Is there just not a lot of? I don't know. Austin's such a
Restaurateurs.
it's such a weird town because it's kind of north and south, and then
Mm.
you've got the hills on the left, and it's there's not a lot of ways to get east and west through town. You can go north and south with Mopac and 39,
Yeah.
35, but then trying to get between the two, there's like two roads, Ben White and 183. It's a weird town.
Well, and when we opened, and I think the town still mirrors this, the town is kind of folded over the river. Like you can almost take all the businesses that have a spot on the south side, they're going to have a spot on the north side because you try to get
Right.
across the river at rush hour, it
You
ain't
can't.
happening fast.
You can't. And
No.
you're right. You have to have multiple locations because you can't get anywhere.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's, kind of what we've been looking at as we look to expand is, you can look at those traffic patterns and kind of see where people are stuck. And that's I mean,
Right.
it might be not far from your other location, but we noticed that with our newest location, which is on Ben White, our brewing location, and our South Lamar location, geographically, they're only a few miles apart. There is almost no crossover with the consumer base because we're just on that cusp of where people aren't going to try to cross over.
Right. Interesting. That's why
And
I
you-
live in San Antonio. Well, some people call it South Austin, but San Antonio,
I don't know who these people are, Harry. I haven't heard this yet.
Yeah, San Antonio. I've never heard of it. I'm from there,
No.
but I don't know what you're talking about.
No,
Sounds
no.
lame.
Keep San Antonio lame.
Yeah. No,
That's-
San Antonio is cool.
I'm going down to San Antonio tonight. I'm going to go down to a show at Stable Hall. So
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
cool.
Yeah.
Very
You're going to
cool.
love it. You're going to love it here. I guarantee it.
I'm
Well,
sure
we
he's been
sell
there.
beer down there. I'm down there quite a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. So you guys would never go, you're not going to distribute outside of Texas, right? There's no plan to.
Right now, no. Again, never say never, right? But right now, no. Our big focus is Central Texas, Austin, San Antonio, and that corridor. I mean, I think we feel like we have a lot of runway. We obviously talk to these distributors a lot. Silver Eagle, they believe that there's a lot of runway with these brands down in San Antonio. So I think that'll be kind of our next consistent push down there. And then Texas is just a weird state. I mean, you basically have 3 states in one.
Yeah.
So people are like, are you going to go to Houston or Dallas? It's like, I mean, you might as well go to Nashville at that point. Like it's not,
Right.
it's not any more difficult to send beer there and manage that market than like a Dallas.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, eventually I assume we'll, continue to grow, but, as far as sending beer, we do some drop distributions, usually around festivals, that we're participating in or something like that. But as far as consistent distribution, we have no
Yeah.
plans at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And then any other big new things for 2025, or 2025 is not the year for big new things in craft?
Well, yeah, actually, it's kind of fortuitous the day we're chatting. We just signed a lease in San Antonio.
Oh,
So you're breaking news today.
sweet.
Yeah.
Wow. Whereabouts?
Up on the rim.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
perfect. Close to my parents' house. Awesome.
Yeah. So we just we've been looking down there for about a year and a half. Real estate's challenging for different reasons than Austin. But yeah, we found, I think it's going to be an A+ spot. It's going to be about 8,000 square feet, the hybrid brew pub, slight distribution coming out of it model. So yeah, we're hoping, maybe late next year, early 26, we'll have that open and be selling beer and pizza down there.
Yeah, that's a great location.
That's great
Yeah.
news. I'll go hang out there. It's that's a growing part of the town too. It's kind of like a little mini Austin up there, over there.
It's wild. Like we look at, the beer we sell down there, and you take it, it's really like the Rim and the Pearl are the 2 big spots, right? And I guess we're too young to afford property in the Pearl.
Yeah.
But yeah, we felt like that area, it's just a great trade area. how the population funnels in and out of that town right there and where it's
Mhm.
growing. I think it's going to be a good spot. I've been down in San Antonio about once every 3 or 4 weeks for the last couple of years, so getting to know that market more, and it's a really intriguing market. For craft, I think it's probably the most fun market in the country because people are so engaged in craft beer. Like you do a pint night down there and people show up for it. Like they want the pint glass, they want to talk to the brewer. Austin, everybody's jaded, no one really cares anymore. Portland, all these other markets, it's like, oh, you're just another craft brewer. Yeah, San Antonio, people are in. It's really fun.
It is kind of fertile ground because San Antonio is always kind of like 10 years after Austin on everything. And yeah, it's craft beer has been notoriously difficult to sell here.
Yeah. Retail, right?
Yeah, we can count on 2 hands how many have gone in and out of business.
Mm-hmm.
But it is just now starting to come up in its own, especially with the university out there, and then just the homes being built out there at the rim on that I-10 corridor. It's a lot of military, a lot of what am I trying to say? Tech, tech shit going on. A lot of government tech going on out there. Secret stuff. I shouldn't even be talking about it on this podcast, but you're gonna get some real nerds in there drinking your beer.
Some real nerds.
Yeah.
And shoppers. Shoppers need a beer. So
yeah.
Lots of shoppers.
Well, that's awesome. Joe, I'm so glad I'm so glad I met you more formally. I wish you all the best luck. We always say this podcast is where dreams come true. I hope your San Antonio dreams come true. You can count me as an early customer. I love pizza. I love beer. I think you got a good thing going. Let's count the ways. You're running at near capacity. You have a simple package configuration of 16-ounce 4-packs. That's right. Or is it 19 ounce? 16 ounce.
16.
Yeah. And then you've got the 2 kegs. That's such a beautiful setup you got there. You don't have all this complexity. You don't have all these headaches. You don't have all this bullshit of shipping out of state and different tax regimes and all of that. You're in a tight corridor that's growing. The Austin-San Antonio corridor. Austin and San Antonio are going to become one giant city. We're going to be like Dallas-Fort Worth in another 5 years. Just mark me. So anyway, I'm glad you came on the podcast, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday.
Yeah, thanks. You too. Have a great holiday. Thanks for having me. Always fun to chat beer.
You bet.
Thank you, Joe.
Anytime. All right,
Cheers.
take care, guys.